As Dr. Carolyn had mentioned in the meditation, it is so appropriate and divine that we're following the Centers for Spiritual Living topics. So all of the Centers for Spiritual Living around the world may be using these common topics, and the common topic today is compassion. And for this community, experiencing the 6-month anniversary of the campfire on Wednesday, May 8th, is a divine time. There is a time. The after effects are still very active in all of us, whether you're aware of it or not. Those effects show up differently for each of us, but I can tell you by my own experience in conversations, connections with people, ministerial sessions, meetings and workshops like the one I went to yesterday, which I'll share a little bit with you. Compassion is an appropriate topic for this Center for Chico, for Paradise, for Butte County. And so today's lesson is actually from quite a few sources. The first one is, I went to a workshop at Chico State yesterday. It was a 4-hour session with a speaker. It was very powerful. She's worked in the field of trauma, natural disasters, and other forms of trauma for over 30 years, and it was sort of obvious based on how fluid she was. And she offered a whole lot of resources, just gave away a lot of wonderful information, sharing with people tools for what she would call metabolizing a trauma. And I can't possibly reiterate the 4 hours worth, although I would love to. She has 2 books, and this one I bought called Trauma Stewardship. And it has much of what she mentioned yesterday, and so I bring that up as some of what you hear today is from that. I also am in the middle of reading the book, The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Have any of you actually read this book? Okay, more than a handful. I love it. And our philosophy, our faith here believes in all the wisdom of the ages, and of course the Buddhists have a very well-grounded understanding and principle of compassion. And so some of today's lesson will come from that. Of course, some of Science of Mind and Dr. Ernest Holmes. And then the book of the month is by Dr. Gary Simmons. He's actually, I believe, a unity minister, so in New Thought. And it's called, how we talk about the eye of a storm, that it's peaceful in the eye of the storm. He uses that to say the eye of the storm, and that while the storm may be happening around us in the physical domain, we can bring ourselves into the eye of the storm, the centeredness of ourselves. And of course, also sharing authentically with my own experiences, especially lately. So, when you think of compassion, who do you think of? Excellent model. Gone. Pardon me?
My mom.
Your mom. Beautiful. Wonderful. You've got a personal model. Love it. Mother Teresa. Kuan Yin. Sort of a, well, let me keep moving forward. When you think about these particular individuals, what characteristics exude from these compassionate people? Or maybe another way to ask the question is, what makes you think of the person as compassionate? What are those things that exude from them? Kindness,
Love.
empathy, love,
Givingness.
givingness, complete presence. Ooh, I love that. Yeah. Listening with the heart. Humanity. Okay, so, and connecting with humanity. And understanding. Patience. Empathy. The ability to listen. How about equanimity? Do you get a sense of, it doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter race. I mean, all the labels that we have today. Does it matter to those that are oozing this compassion? It appears not. Now, don't take this personally. But notice that you don't usually see stressed people as compassionate people. It's not that compassion isn't within them, but it's not that you see it readily expressed or visible, right? So compassion gets squeezed out by a lot of different things. By judgment, expectations, labeling, arrogance, selfishness, separation, otherness, or just pushing away pain and what's uncomfortable. In other words, compassion gets squeezed out by when the head takes over the wide open heart. And it takes courage to have a wide open heart, to be so compassionate with all those attributes that we name. So what exactly is compassion? And by the Tibetan book, they said it's not simply sympathy or caring. It's not simply a warmth of heart towards others. Because you can imagine feeling that without, per se, full compassion. Not simply knowing someone else's needs or pains, but a sustained and practical determination to do what is ever possible at giving. Whatever is possible and necessary to help alleviate suffering, which includes prayer. By Stephen Levine, I love this quote, when your fear touches someone's pain, it becomes pity. When your love touches someone's pain, or your own pain, it becomes compassion. So, why would anyone want to be compassionate? Because we're all one, and I think we all would like to see and feel that compassion. And hence, if that's what we want to see, that's what we be in the world. And we certainly don't see a lot of compassion demonstrated in our leadership today. All leadership. And really, why would anyone want to be compassionate? It's sort of a trick question. Because compassion is technically who you are at the depth of your being. It is your true nature. When you're not trying to protect yourself, otherness, judge, put expectations on others. Compassion would just be naturally flowing through you because God is compassion. God is in, as, and through you. And hence, when you are connected and aligned with that, you naturally will be exuding compassion. So if you threw your heart wide open right now, being fully present to each individual here, no fear, no expectations, no labeling, no judgment, just allowing pure love to flow through you. That compassion would be expressing through you as your true nature. If you're holding every person you meet as sacred, because they really are, that is compassion. Now, most of us have less trouble expressing compassion for those that are close to us, but not to those who particularly were having issues and difficulty. And Dr. Ernest Holmes writes, we must look at a thing long enough until it no longer has power over us or the ability to disturb us. Now, why must we look at something long enough? To metabolize it. That's right. In other words, to bring yourself back to the truth. Right? So easy to quickly react and not respond. So when we face life challenges, we're asked to remember that this is all divine. Campfire, does it feel like that? It's not typically how we would look at that, right? In the eye of the storm. You know, the campfire was out of control, yes? And all the impact still is out of control. The infrastructure, when we talk about sewer, water, city, all the environmental aspects. And what tends to happen is we want to try to get back control. Which is then trying to manipulate the external and say, if only these things would happen, then I'll be happy and I'll feel better. But really our spiritual practice is to align ourselves back with the truth and say, no, compassion, love, wholeness is right here where you are. Which may mean creating relationship with that which is uncomfortable right now. And I like to say creating relationship because, of course, if I say something like, accept that you may be confused and angry and unclear and upset, then it's sort of like, I don't want to accept that. But one of the things that trauma stewardship talked about is become curious. When you become curious, even with compassion, there's humility, right? You sort of take a step back. And instead of trying to step in and control, curious is, let me wonder, Mr. Wonderman. And when you step back and become curious, then whether it's the issues, the demonstrations of moving yourself along, whatever impact that is, having trouble in a particular relationship, if you can step back, be curious, you'll be able to move into compassion a little bit easier rather than, I have expectations, I have certain things that need to happen, and when that happens, then no, step back. Sometimes your heart is calling you. And again, it may not be because you're in a place where you're happy or joyful. Your heart is asking you to witness the suffering that you may be going through. And you can't metabolize that by pushing things around and expecting that you can rearrange the world in order to get back to the eye of the storm, the calm of the storm. The truth is that no one and no thing is against you. Life is 100% for you. It's only your thinking that that's not so. your life be different if you lived as if no one or nothing was against you? That whatever happening is happening for you. It's true that you may be suffering, but it's not because life is against you. That may be how you see it, but it's not truth with a capital T. An example of this is that if you become aware of your mind chatter or your energy, spending a lot of time defending or protecting yourself. Now, of course, the campfire has made us all vulnerable. And one of the great things yesterday that they talked about is, there's a lot going on underneath everybody, meaning we may have experienced the similar physical event of the campfire, but where we are all at and how we process that is very different. And people will get cynical. People will start comparing your pain to my pain, to the kind of suffering, what that suffering means. Is it better? Is it worse? And I loved when she said, there is no competition or hierarchy for suffering. Compassion. I see that you are suffering. I open my heart. No judgment, no expectations. I just open my heart to let you know I'm here and I'm present. And the universe is saying, I am here for you. Person A has only lived at the mountaintop of a very tall mountain. Let's choose Mount Shasta, because it's just so majestic for the North State. So pretend person A has only lived at the top of Mount Shasta. Meanwhile, this valley girl, born and raised in Modesto, has only lived at the valley floor. Tell me how different are these people's perspectives? How are they different? The field of vision is very different. What you see, what you focus on, what is in front of you is very different. On the mountaintop, they're at peace. Can the people in the valley be at peace?
Air quality.
And lightheadedness. Lifestyle, yes. In other words, are seasons exactly the same?
Population.
Yeah. The clothing that you would wear day and night would be the same? Natural food that would be in those places? Shelter? How you live your life, right? So who's right? Person A or person B?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting when people don't measure up to our perspective. When people do things, see things, express things differently, there frequently isn't compassion. You have your perspective. How could anyone else see it differently? There's only 7.5 billion of us on the earth. And when you think of it that way, like everyone's got their own perspective. That's the wholeness of it. Really, the enemy is a reflection of your belief that someone or something is either not doing it your way, is not supporting you, or is against you. There's something in all of that. But there really is no right way and the other way. And most of us don't like to embrace conflict. I'll just move to the peaceful spot. But it's really an opportunity to uncover the wholeness, the new perspective, and the divinity that is the truth of it all, the sacredness of all of it. It's an opportunity to learn that what we otherwise might not learn. Wholeness can't be outside of you unless you make it other, foreign, confused, not mine, don't understand it. But when we have less attachment to see it our way and more curiosity to lean in and say, how do you see it? That listening, that opening. I didn't see that perspective. Now my perspective expands. Person A gets to visit the mountaintop. Person B gets to visit the mountaintop. Person A gets to visit the valley. I see. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Let us take our bloated nothingness out of the path of divine circuits." Less ego, more heart. Now, if there are difficulties, whether they be with people right now or with the state of things, you can free your enemy with compassion. We all suffer in our own way. It's just not hanging on our sleeves for everybody to see. And again, my suffering, equanimity-wise, is no different, better, worse, deeper, harder, than somebody else's. It's suffering. So, if we're truly connected to our divine source, we can see different possibilities of the responses demonstrated by the love that you express. I really hated it a long time ago when I was in counseling, and the counselor said to me, "Well, do you want to be right or do you want to be loved?" Both! That goes back to wanting to be right, right? What is my intention? To be loved. And so if you let go of being right and focus on what you want demonstrated through the love and the wholeness that you are, you can find your way together. Even with dancing with the ugliness. And that feels really awkward and uncomfortable. But we just love to fix things, get to it, take care of it, get it done now. We do that as a society. Automatically jumping to fixing things. I can fix that. Well, if I could just... And not really honoring the essence of the lesson that is trying to wake us up. And so, yes, via compassion, via praying for yourself and for them to see the divinity in it all. And that may be hard to dig out based on your circumstances. And I already said to somebody that while the campfire may have been the common experience, where you go from the physical experience of the campfire is very different spiritually for each person. That's sometimes hard to grasp. You had this common experience, but what that means, what message is coming for you from your soul, and how you proceed forward, not the same. Jack Kornfield says, though, as humans, we are very loyal to our suffering. We get used to our energy patterns. We sometimes even don't want somebody to fix how we're feeling. I don't want to be pacified. I'm not feeling happy, confused, frustrated, lost, whatever. And we tend to want to stick to that because our suffering has become comfortable. The suffering is uncomfortable, but we're comfortable with the suffering because it's familiar. Try to make sense out of that. So the Buddhists have a practice called Tonglen. Anybody heard of that before? Okay, about 1/3 in the room. And Tonglen means giving and receiving. And its intention is to awaken us to love and compassion. And the book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, has several different practices listed in the book. In order to practice Tonglen, the first thing you have to be able to evoke is compassion for yourself. Why would that be? Yes. And do you really want to hear from somebody who's never had the experience of something but has all the knowledge? Oh yeah, I went to pilot school, but I never flew the plane. Oh, I took all the medical doctor, things, but I never practiced medicine. In order to express compassion, we have to be able to reach back to the compassion that is our true nature in ourselves. So, if you'd like to get comfortable, if you'd like to close your eyes, I ask you to move your attention into your heart. And ask you to visualize and recreate an experience of love that someone gave you that really moved you. Could be when you were a child, could be your first crush, could be your partner. Visualize and recreate in your heart that feeling of the love that you were given that really moved you. Let that feeling rise and expand in your heart. Let that feeling of love flow, knowing that indeed you are worthy of love, you are lovable, and you are loved. Now extend this love to the beings in this room. Let that love grow and expand because it is unlimited. Let it expand to all of those who appear to be your enemy, those that you're having difficulty with. Let it expand, Chico, to all the communities involved in the campfire. Just keep letting that love grow and expand. Boundless love. Beyond California, to all the nations. And to Mother Earth. This practice is a practice of being. Practice of connecting. A practice of experiencing the truth of your beingness. And I know that the love that we allow right here, right now, what is known in one place is known everywhere. Omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, all-powerful. And I'm knowing that as we do this practice right here and now, we are moving and allowing and expressing our true nature of compassion. It is good, it is blessed, we are grateful. And we let it be so, and together we say, and so it is. I have one other summary here, or topic, and then I'll summarize. I want to make sure that I recognize specifically that there are a lot of effects of the campfire trauma still with us today. We are all one, we're all connected and interconnected. The effects of PTSD and other symptoms of trauma are active right now in all of us, whether we're aware of it or not. And I call on you as members of the Center for Spiritual Living to focus your spiritual practice on compassion. Compassion first for yourself as you suffer. Suffer based on the expectations that you may have on life and on people right now. Expectations you may have of, the state, the county, the people, the organizations. Yesterday's speaker shared the research that when animals go through a very traumatic event, do you know what they do to flush their nervous system of the adrenaline and calm themselves down? Sex, food, and naps. Okay. Any particular order? Let me go have a traumatic event. Now, researchers know that that's not what happens to humans. Well, I don't know. There might be a lot more love, right? Animals are in the present moment. In humans, we live a lot in the past and in the future. We fret and worry about the future. And we continue to injure ourselves, reminding ourselves of the past. And by bringing that emotion into the present moment, we continue to prick ourselves. And yet we won't make it a habit to check in with ourselves to be present with where we currently are. I'm going to go back to the past, or I'm going to worry about the future because I just am uncomfortable in the present. Again, I invite you to create relationship with what it is you feel in the present. Instead of being busy trying to do things to move stuff along, ask you literally to witness for yourself the pain and suffering. and breathe through it. There is another practice, and I could go on and on from the book, that talks about breathing in, cleansing, and breathing out. Our breath takes in more than just air, because, air is a chemistry. Chemists can tell us all of that. But in all those little particles, there is nothingness, which I believe is really the potential of which is where the truth is at. Yeah. So we have the power to transform through our breath. And we do need to slow down, but society is not going to encourage you for that. And one of the things she did say, it's really hard to, she didn't say this, but I know that it's hard to discipline yourself when you're just feeling lost, confused, unclear. And that's why I hope that you'll use a minister practitioner to help you center back to the eye of the storm, to remember who you truly are, to slow down so that you can metabolize where it is you're at and allow that to be transformed. Be with your heart. Don't ignore where you are at in this present moment. Order comes out of disorder, so we may be in disorder. There is nothing against you in that. Things are rearranging, and it's important to be present and then set your intention. Again, responding, not reacting. People who are unconscious are reacting. Don't get caught up in their reacting. So this is a spiritual calling right now for everyone in this room, because you wouldn't be here. It is just divine right order that you're here and being asked to practice compassion, first for yourself and for your community. And I'm going to launch that campaign right now using Thich Nhat Hanh's 4 mantras, because I believe they are the most wonderful, compassionate expressions. The first mantra is, beloved, I am here for you. Beloved, I know you are here, and I am so happy that you are here, truly present. Beloved, I know you suffer, and that is why I am here for you. And beloved, I suffer. I am trying my best. Please help me. I'm happy to share those mantras, and I will be using those daily. And I'm knowing that the divine expression is alive and well in the eye of this storm called campfire. And I honor each of you in moving yourself to know that truth. Divine right action is happening. And you are that expression of the divine, making a difference for all of those that you come in contact with.